Okay, part two to how my mother was murdered. Before I fully get into part two, I just want to explain a little bit of the family dynamic between my mother and my father. When my father met my mother, he was still married and he had 4 children of his own. My mother, on the other hand, had a previous relationship where she had a child of her own. I was the only child that they had together. I do not know if my mother's pregnancy was the reason why he left his wife, but he did eventually leave his wife and get married to my mother. The only family I knew from the time I was born up until my mom's murder was my mother, my father, my sister, and my father's children. His children ranged in age from 10 to 18 years older than me, so they were always more like parents, but they were all that I knew. So my mother and my father hid his abuse of her pretty well. I really only remember a lot of aftermath. I remember us getting up in the middle of the night and running. I remember us moving to a whole other state and him coming and finding us. I remember my mom putting barricades up on the door so he couldn't get back in. But other than that, that's really all I can remember about their relationship until we moved to the house where my mother was murdered. I don't remember exactly what happened, why things changed so drastically, but I remember being very scared for my mother. I remember not wanting to go to school a lot because I thought that I could protect her. I believed that if I was home, my dad wouldn't do things to her. So I can remember probably about 3 incidents that happened right before my mother's murder that scared me and my sister. So a lot of times why I didn't hear my mother and father arguing was because my sister would hear it first and she would make me go back to sleep. On this night, they were arguing in the middle of the night really loudly and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I heard my father tell my mother that he was going to chop hers off and make sure that nobody found her. I remember my father calling us out to the living room one day, me and my sister, and telling us that if my mom and him broke up, who we would want to go with. My mom said, do not make them make that choice. I'm taking them anyway. My dad told my mom, you can take Melissa, but you will never get Brittany. So the last incident I can remember a couple of days before my mother's murder was she sat me and my sister down and she told us if anything ever happened to her that we were supposed to stick together no matter what. Part 3 will be up next.